Hello and welcome to the 35th episode of A Woman Robbed, a bonus series from And the Runner-Up Is, where we talk about actresses who may have come close to earning Oscar nominations, but were ultimately overlooked, omitted, or for one reason or another just didn't have the votes to make it into the final lineup, discussing why they may have deserved to get in and why they ultimately didn't. Each episode has its own theme, presented as a double feature, and this week we are going to be covering two performances from actresses who identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community who are not nominated for Oscars in honor of Pride Month. And my guest today, I'm always excited to have on the show. She is the mind behind the Be Kind Rewind YouTube channel, who has joined me across many different shows of mine over the years. This is not her first episode of A Woman Robbed, lest we forget. Joining me all the way back in 2023 to discuss Ingrid Bergman in Casablanca and Myrna Loy in The Best Years of Our Lives, one of the very first episodes of A Woman Robbed. Welcome back, Izzy.
Oh, thank you for having me and for reminding me about that episode because now I'm just mad about them all over again.
I know, the injustice of it all.
Ugh,
Best Picture winning films, and yet the
and
leading
yet
ladies. Yeah. I'm so excited to get to today's topic as well. Let us get right into it. I presented to my patrons here And the Runner-Up Is a list of 15 past Best Actress contenders who identify as part of the LGBT community. And the options were Marlene Dietrich in Witness for the Prosecution, Jodie Foster in Contact, Lily Gladstone in The Unknown Country, Adele Haenel in Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Angelina Jolie in Maria, Lady Gaga in House of Gucci, Cynthia Nixon in A Quiet Passion, Anna Paquin in Margaret, Kristen Stewart in Personal Shopper, Tilda Swinton in Orlando, Tessa Thompson in Hedda, Lily Tomlin in Grandma, Daniela Vega in A Fantastic Woman, Ava Victor in Sorry Baby, and Evan Rachel Wood in 13.
wow, that's a really good list. You did a good job with that.
Thank
Nice.
you. Yes, a lot of great robbed performers in there, but the top vote getters were Marlene Dietrich and Anna Paquin. I love tracking this poll. Each of those options received at least 2 votes, which always makes me happy that I didn't accidentally put in like a total bust in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Marlene Dietrich was the easy number one, towering over this competition. I said it before to you offline. My patrons have great taste.
They do. Yeah. Really
Yeah.
good.
And then it was a real fight for the second choice between Adele Haenel, Anna Paquin, Tessa Thompson, Lily Tomlin, and Daniela Vega. All received a lot of votes. Very impressive, but Anna Paquin just barely edged out the third placer, who was Daniela Vega. So, before we delve into Marlena and Anna, Izzy, I think we're both well aware of, the obstacles that those in the LGBTQ community face in Hollywood and in film as a whole. And, it's even more difficult for out actors to get recognition. Granted, some of the choices I listed were not out at the time of those performances coming out and eligible for Oscars, but still, we have found, I think, that it's an uphill battle more often than not. And so I'm just wondering if you could just speak a little bit to how, even though Hollywood kind of purports itself to be very liberal-minded and such, that there are still those obstacles.
Totally. And I think what you said there is key. It's like how many of these people were actually out at the time of
Yeah.
the film that they were starring in. We only have a really short history when we look back at American film history of like a time when people would be out and nominated as out.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to know kind of how we can numerically judge this trend, I guess.
Right.
Because to me, I look back at, I mean, even something like Witness for the Prosecution, like half that cast has like rumors, at least, if
That's true.
not straight up, in later in life would say something about it. So it's
Hmm.
sort of like all of these kind of stories that could never come to the surface that nevertheless they were like kind of successful in their day, and
Hmm.
we can't really definitively claim it, but also we can. It's like
Right.
it's hard to measure the impact because it just wasn't allowed to be on the surface at all for so long in film history. And I think we're still kind of grappling with that, especially now as we kind of backslide. And I think a lot of major studios are kind of becoming afraid of backlash or kind of conservatism in general. I don't know. I think it's just up to us to kind of keep the train moving in terms of insisting that these stories be told and that people
Yeah.
are given the chance to tell their own stories in that way.
Yeah. Keep using your voice and keeping Hollywood in check. Yeah.
Yeah.
It it really comes down to the fact too that I think Hollywood is kind of, as I indicated before, not as liberal minded as they may seem at times. Obviously, in a perfect world, it wouldn't be like a big consideration to think about an actor's sexual orientation or gender identity when it comes to just quality of performance.
Right.
But when you start to look at the trends, Jodie Foster had, of course, won twice, but she only came out many years after those wins. Susan Sarandon came out as bisexual many years after winning. Uh,
Yes.
Olivia Colman very recently kind of casually came out as non-binary somewhat recently as well, but obviously that was also after winning.
Hmm.
So I think it's still an issue when it really shouldn't be. The way the industry is set up, though, is just it's so focused on what's marketable, and that someone's sexual identity or gender identity can be somewhat of a barrier still. Maybe
Yeah.
it's getting a tiny bit better, but as with anything, though, I think it's more of a systemic issue than specifically an Oscars issue. Not to totally absolve them of responsibility, but, as Viola Davis said in her Emmy speech, like, you cannot win an Emmy for a role that's simply not there. And that's kind of the
Totally.
case, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I just interviewed Michael Koreski, who's a wonderful critic and programmer in New York City for people who might not know his work, but he wrote a book called Sick and Dirty, and it's just basically about the 25-year period between the implementation of the Hays Code in 1962, which is when like the second Children's Hour movie came out.
Yep.
But I think like he pointed out a really interesting irony like on this subject specifically, which is that like this interest has always been there. There's always been a queer community that is like really interested in hearing these stories and like going to plays that are about these things, whether they acknowledge that or not. And Hollywood kind of ironically, as you said, is mostly interested in marketing and marketability. And so when these plays and these stories kind of take off and people show how interested they are in them, Hollywood, like they don't care. They're not activists about it. They're going to buy it up. They're going to buy up the property. But then the ironic thing is that there's this sort of censorship apparatus that then comes in and strips all of those elements away of all of the things that people originally enjoyed. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of two things. It's we need to take advantage of the fact that like we have numbers. There's people out there in the world who want to hear this. We need to
Mm-hmm.
show that it's popular so that like we can basically manipulate the fact that Hollywood just wants to make money and they want things to be marketable.
Yep.
And then also be aware of those kinds of censorship moments where you see things kind of blatantly being scrubbed clean, quote unquote,
Right.
or yeah, sanitized so that they can
Mm-hmm.
appeal to audiences or perceived like conservatism in audiences as well.
That's very well said. And obviously, what we're talking about today, these are not like LGBT kinds of movies by any means, but it still speaks to just, again, opportunity as well with actors to play whatever role they can if they're good enough.
Yeah. Well, with someone like Marlene Dietrich, I think there's always kind of with any performance of hers, there's going to be a kind of like gender subversion going on a little
Oh, yeah.
bit. And I think that
Yeah.
that sort of maybe, I don't know. No, I do know it does affect like the way people think about her for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And so maybe that's something we could talk about later.
Yeah. Put a pin in that. Because actually, that set us up very nicely because we are first going to talk about Marlene Dietrich in Witness for the Prosecution.
I never thought you British could get so emotional, especially in a public place.
I apologize for making patriots.
Oh, it's all right. I don't mind being called names or pushed around or even kicked in the shin. But now I have a ladder and my last pair of nylons.
In case you are not familiar with our prison regulations, no silk stockings.
Prison? Will I go to prison?
You've heard the learned judge who will quite certainly be charged with perjury, tried for it, and to prison you shall go.
Well, it won't be for life, will it?
If I were appearing for the prosecution, it would be.
You loathe me, don't you? Like the people outside. What a wicked woman I am, and how brilliantly you exposed me and saved Leonard's life. The great Sir Wilfrid Robarts did it again. Well, let me tell you something. You didn't do it alone. You had help.
So, I've already introduced and discussed Marlena long ago on the Best Actress series for her nominated performance in Morocco. A very important LGBTQ film, I would argue, because of the iconic kiss that she shares with a woman in the audience there. But don't need to do another big introduction here, but as a brief catch-up for those truly in the dark, Marlene Dietrich was a German actress who launched to international fame for her very alluring performances in the films of Joseph von Sternberg, including Morocco. And then moving forward in her career, she continued to star in films such as Destry Rides Again and performed as an entertainer during World War II before coming back to Hollywood in films like A Foreign Affair, Stage Fright. She has a cameo in Around the World in 80 Days. She racked up so many credits and also released a few records in between all that before ultimately co-starring in Witness for the Prosecution. So this is Billy Wilder's adaptation of Agatha Christie's short story and play of the same name. So Marlene and Billy Wilder had previously worked together on his film A Foreign Affair and had nothing but praise for her, saying she was essentially like the ideal woman. Like he truly was like so flowery in his praise for her. And she only agreed to do this film if Billy Wilder was to direct her. So yeah, as I read in the little TCM production notes about this film, it was essentially a mutual appreciation society going on there. And apparently Vivian Leigh was also up for the role, but everything I've read suggests that Billy wanted Marlene first and foremost. And when you see the film, I think it seems tailor-made to her particular set of skills. So, Witness for the Prosecution is a courtroom drama that follows a barrister named Sir Wilfrid Roberts, played by Charles Laughton, who's recently suffered a heart attack and is nearing retirement, and is taken care of by his highly attentive nurse, Miss Pilmsall, played by Elsa Lanchester. Despite her urgings otherwise, though, he agrees to take up a case of a man named Leonard Vole, played by Tyrone Power, who is accused of murdering an older woman, Mrs. French. His case does not look good, especially when we learn that Mrs. French had bequeathed her entire fortune to him, but Sir Wilfrid sees this as a challenge and agrees to defend him. And then we meet Leonard's mysterious wife, Christine, played by Marlene Dietrich, a German immigrant who seems to be on their side and gives an alibi for Leonard that he was with her at the time the crime was occurring, but she later switches it up on a dime and becomes the titular witness for the prosecution, testifying against her husband, and is essentially getting out of the spousal privilege situation after we learn that her marriage to Leonard might not be valid, and that she still supposedly has a husband back in Germany who she's legally married to. So quite a few twists and turns from there that we will probably get into as we find answers as to why she is indeed testifying. So with that, Izzy, would love to know your overall thoughts on Miss Marlene Dietrich as an actress, as a bisexual icon, and your thoughts on her performance here.
Well, as we're sitting here, I'm literally sitting underneath a big poster of her right now.
Wow.
She's my
Okay.
goat. I love her.
Right. I'm all glad you're on this episode. Then.
Yeah, that's why I was definitely eager to work with you on this one. But I think she's amazing. I think she's funny and campy and stunning. I just have a lot of superlatives for Marlene Dietrich. I mean, I just feel like she, just like a lore moment for me, she's like so key to the fact that I'm even sitting with you here today. Like, I was living in Germany when I wanted to start my channel. And because it was like such a new place to me, the way that I would understand Berlin was like touring around and seeing the places like, oh, this is where the theater she would have been at was. And like, this is the church where she got married. And like, just that's how I wanted to tour Berlin, like how I would get to know the new city that I was living in. And so like sort of through that, history became kind of different to me and important. And so I have to pay my respects to Miss Dietrich for that. I feel like without her, I wouldn't even be here. So you're not going to get a lot of not glazing from me on Marlene Dietrich. But yeah, that's how I
mean, I feel like that's how most people, like, not to that level maybe, but like most people feel very positive about her. So I don't know if you'd get any pushback if you're glazing too much.
That's true. I mean, I think there are reasons. It's like all the things that people might say that would be negative are things that I find really charming. It's like, is she a good singer? Not really, but also who cares? That's not really the point. So, I think we can turn any negative around if you want to.
Yes, she's got the spirit.
Yes.
Even if she doesn't have the pipes all the time.
A good person? Definitely not. Sometimes not a good mom, maybe, but
Sure,
you know,
sure. Yeah.
that's
We're
okay.
not here to judge on that level, at least.
Exactly.
We're talking about the
Exactly.
performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I only, again, got to talk about Marlena the one time, but I think she really does deserve multiple nominations beyond Morocco, personally. Like Shanghai Express,
Right.
no brainer. Destry Rides Again, which I just watched for the first time recently and absolutely loved her in that.
The
Oh
fight.
my God. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tough year. Like
Tom
39
Cruise
is
eat your heart out kind
yeah.
of
Yeah.
stunt choreography.
Yeah, for sure.
No, 39 is like, yeah, notoriously competitive, but
Right.
we don't need Greer Garson there. She's supporting anyway, but that's
Right.
another topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but possibly for this, I might nominate her. I will reveal later in the episode whether I would, but I think she is just such a 1 in a million kind of star whose face is just to die for. Like, I cannot look away when she's on screen. Like, she knew her angles. She knew how to use that very like angular face and her
Yeah.
body language, and she would often, play similar kinds of characters, like this sort of beautiful exotic woman, often an entertainer who's usually like doomed in relationships and whatnot. Maybe got a little typecast into that. And what I love about her work in this movie is that I feel like it's using that association that audiences have with her and sort of turns it on its head a little bit, because she is still all of those things in this role. She's a former entertainer. She's just obviously like strikingly beautiful, and she's mysterious and seems to have a past. And so it's a lot of like familiar aspects. And yet when we get to the end of the film and we have those big reveals of like her disguising herself at one point, as we'll discuss, and we come to understand who this character is, what she did for love, as it were, and that it's not like this cold-hearted sort of femme fatale sort of acting out of self-interest type of thing that we might suspect. It was actually a selfless, like self-sacrificing kind of act. That is what makes this such a fascinating melding, I think, of character and the writing of and her performance just all together. It's kind of tough to talk about without just wanting to go to the big twist ending by the end. But
Totally.
I think she's just so effective in playing with those expectations and kind of, I mean, she knows what she's doing. Like, she's kind of weaponizing that for the audience, I think.
Oh, 100%. I mean, well, maybe before we like even continue with this, not to like kneecap your podcast, but like if you haven't
Okay.
seen this movie, maybe pause and go
Yeah,
watch it.
totally.
Because
Yeah.
you don't want to get, spoiled for
No.
maybe the rest of this conversation. But
Yeah.
what I totally agree with you, and I think this is this is part of why I'm really interested in her relationship with Billy Wilder, because I think Billy Wilder really understood her in a very unique way, partially because I think he was generous enough with her and Charles Lawton actually to kind of understand that they brought more to the table than just plain being an actor. They were both very technically gifted. And so, I mean, a lot of directors talk about Dietrich like doing her own lighting and all of that kind of stuff to kind of, because she understood all of that stuff. She wasn't just like manipulating it as an actor. She was kind of directing as well. And so I think he was very perceptive of that, and he really allowed her to kind of get the best out of herself. But then I also think as someone, they would have been in Berlin at the same time. I think they might have even known each other at that point in the 1920s and early 30s. And I think he just understood the world that she came from, and also maybe like the emotional complications that would come from immigrating, but also like watching your country kind of actively become evil and what it means to kind of grapple with that. And I think like the two roles that he writes for her, specifically A Foreign Affair and this, take on that challenge in different ways and kind of bring a little bit of nuance to that state of being that I think is really interesting, and I think does her a lot of favors as an actor as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's this unspoken sort of trust that the two of them probably had, and like speaking the same language without having to say anything. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
And something that I keyed into on this rewatch is just how sort of lighthearted the tone is as we're introduced to the world of this with Charles Laughton and Elsa Lanchester, and they're bickering back and forth, and the way that she tells him, oh, we have to remember he had a teeny weeny heart attack, so, teeny weeny steps now, and he tells her to shut up. And it seems like we're almost like setting this up for like a comedy in a sense, the way it opens. But then it really shifts, I think, as we get into the case, and it takes quite a while before Marlena actually enters. We get Tyrone Power as Leonard kind of explaining how he developed this friendship with Mrs. French, this older woman he's accused of murdering. And I think the film sets up quite well that this will be a case about perception versus reality in a way, and that Leonard stood to gain a huge sum of money from her because she left him the money in the will, even though he's still maintaining his innocence. All of that, of course, is intriguing to the Sir Wilfrid, and because it's like there's no easy answer to this. And then Marlena, the way she steps in, really is exemplifying the idea like of you're not really sure exactly what to make of her, and you might be quick to judge her, as some people eventually will be as they're watching the trial. We're hearing some of the sort of peanut gallery discourse about how they think of her. And yet, again, by the end, it's an entirely different story. So I guess I just appreciate the way that she kind of steps in and changes the temperature of the film, in a sense.
Totally. I mean, I love that her first line is delivered off camera. And so you just hear her voice. And watching it again last night, I immediately I heard her speak, and I was like, work, yes. It's just that very iconic kind of bass voice that she has, interrupting this kind of British accent. It's like very proper kind of banter that they're having, and she just comes in and completely throws a grenade into the room in more ways than one. Like, she's just completely different from any of those people. And I think I've been reading a lot about film noir performance, and I don't think this is a noir really, but I think what is so captivating about it is I don't think Dietrich ever really overperforms. She is more kind of, she has a lot of sloth in her performance, but it's very effective. And I think that really works for something like this, where Christine needs to be intentionally difficult to read. You can't forecast too much with the performance, or else it kind of undermines the mystery of it. So I think that's part of why this performance is so effective, is that she just doesn't want to give much away. I mean, that might just be her natural kind of way that she acts anyway, but it's
her essence.
Yeah, it's very effective here for that reason.
Thank you for listening to this preview of A Woman Robbed, a bonus series from And the Runner-Up Is. If you liked what you heard and want to hear more, please go to patreon.com/andtherunnerupis and become a patron. Only $5 a month will get you access to bonus episodes, exclusive polls, and early access to regular episodes. Thank you so much for your consideration.